U.S. weapons manufacturer Lockheed Martin is reportedly pitching new jobs for Canada. But that offer depends on Ottawa sticking to its plan to buy Lockheed's F-35 fighter jets.
Donald Trump, you may have heard that the Carney government is reconsidering its multi-billion-dollar purchase of American F-35 fighter.
They labeled it a featherweight, a bargain bin fighter, the kind of aircraft that had absolutely no business being in the same airspace as a true apex predator. It was diminutive, relied on only a single engine, and hailed from a neutral nation far better known for sensible family sedans and intricate flat-pack furniture than for forging giant-killing weapons of war. To the swaggering pilots strapped into their multi-million-dollar, twin-engine behemoths, the Swedish Saab Gripen was little more than a curiosity. Perhaps it was a capable regional player, they conceded, but a peer? Not a chance in hell. But then, the unthinkable happened. When the absolute best NATO had to offer, the cream of the Western crop flying the most sophisticated machinery in existence, went toe-to-toe against the Gripen in grueling, high-stakes combat exercises, the script wasn't just flipped, it was shredded. They didn't merely receive a harsh lesson in humility, they were given a terrifying glimpse into the future of aerial warfare. And it was a future for which they were woefully unprepared. This is not simply a tale of a sporting upset. This is the story of a violent awakening. It is an examination of how a revolutionary approach to combat, built upon networked intelligence and a radically divergent military doctrine, left ace pilots speechless and forced high-level strategists to burn their playbooks on air superiority. In the high-octane world of fighter jet dominance, perception often masquerades as reality. For decades, the prevailing perception of the Saab JS-39 Gripen was that of the perennial underdog, a scrappy welterweight foolishly stepping into a ring dominated by heavy hitters. When you line it up on the tarmac alongside its celebrated rivals, it's easy to see why that assumption took root. You have American icons like the F-15 Eagle and the F-22 Raptor, twin-engine monsters engineered for sheer, overwhelming kinetic power. You have the Eurofighter Typhoon and the French Rafale, sleek, muscular European designs that look like they are projecting force even while parked static on the ramp. They are enormous, deafeningly loud, and carry price tags that frequently smash through the $100 million ceiling per unit. And sitting quietly beside them is the Gripen. It is noticeably more compact. It relies on a single power plant. Early models utilized the dependable Volvo RM12, a derivative of the F/A-18's F404 engine, while the newer Gripen E upgrades to the punchier General Electric F414. In the unforgiving calculus of air combat, where a second engine is often viewed as essential life insurance, the single-engine configuration was frequently eyed with deep suspicion. It was dismissed by critics as a cost-cutting compromise, rather than what it truly was, a deliberate, strategic choice favoring efficiency and streamlined maintenance. The acquisition cost only fueled this dismissive narrative. The Gripen has consistently been one of the most accessible 4.5-generation fighters on the market. Its operational cost per flight hour is a mere fraction of its thirsty competitors. Consequently, it was all too easy for pundits to brand it the budget option. In the sprawling landscape of national defense spending, affordable is often devastatingly misinterpreted as less capable. The prevailing logic was brutally simple. If it costs half as much, you must be receiving half the jet. Its country of origin didn't help matters. Sweden's long-standing history of armed neutrality meant its military posture was purely defensive. The Gripen wasn't designed to project imperial power across oceans. It was engineered specifically to defend Swedish airspace against a vastly numerically superior attacker. This led many observers to conclude its skill set was niche, tailored specifically for a defensive Scandinavian war scenario, and likely ill-suited for the large-scale, expeditionary operations NATO favored. Allied pilots would glance at the Gripen spec sheet and see a competent, but underwhelming aircraft. Its top speed hovers around Mach 2. Its service ceiling is a respectable, but not record-breaking, 50,000 feet. It could carry a solid payload of modern weaponry on its 8 hardpoints, including advanced AMRAAM and Meteor missiles, but its smaller airframe meant it couldn't haul the sheer volume of ordnance of an F-15E Strike Eagle. And so, the myth calcified. The Gripen was a clever little fighter, perfect for Sweden or for smaller air forces that couldn't afford the Premier League jets. It was a solid B-team player that knew its place, but it wasn't a true giant killer. It certainly wasn't the kind of machine that could walk into the most grueling combat simulation on Earth and dominate. That assumption, as a cocky handful of NATO pilots were about to discover, was dangerously, embarrassingly wronged. To truly grasp how the Gripen managed to shock the aerial warfare establishment, You have to understand the dangerous world that birthed it. The Gripen is more than just a collection of aluminum and carbon fiber. It is the physical embodiment of Sweden's unique defense philosophy, forged in the icy paranoia of the Cold War. It represents a way of thinking about conflict that is diametrically opposed to the doctrines of superpowers. For a nation like the United States, air power is predicated on owning the skies and operating from massive, sprawling, well-defended air bases. Sweden knew it could never win a symmetrical war of attrition against a Soviet superpower. It couldn't possibly match them plane for plane, pilot for pilot. Instead, it developed a strategy known as total defense. The core idea was to make invading Sweden so brutally difficult, so bleedingly costly, that no rational adversary would ever attempt it. This philosophy had a profound impact on the Swedish Air Force. They knew their main air bases would be vaporized in the first hours of World War III. The solution they devised was both brilliant and radical: the Base 90 system. The Air Force would not fight from fixed locations. It would scatter across the landscape, operating from ordinary roads. Miles of public highways were secretly reinforced to serve as emergency runways, with fuel depots and armories concealed in the dense, surrounding boreal forests. The entire Air Force had to be capable of decentralizing instantly and continuing the fight guerrilla style. This is the unforgiving environment that dictated the Gripen's design parameters. The new fighter had to achieve things no other top-tier jet was even considering. It necessitated incredible short takeoff and landing STOL capabilities. It couldn't rely on miles of pristine concrete. It had to be able to launch from a 500-meter stretch of snowy rural highway between pine trees. This requirement drove the design of its distinctive canards and delta wing configuration for high lift at low speeds, and its incredibly robust landing gear built to absorb the punishment of rough, unprepared surfaces. But merely landing on a road was only half the battle. In a high-intensity war, you don't have the luxury of time or massive ground crews. Therefore, the Gripen was designed for ridiculously fast turnarounds by a skeleton crew, many of whom would be conscripts with only basic training. The design goal, which has been proven time and again in the field, was staggering. A Gripen could land, refuel, rearm with a full complement of air-to-air missiles, and be roaring back into the sky in just 10 minutes. For a more complex ground attack loadout, it took 20 minutes. Think about the implications of that speed. While a pilot in a competing fighter is still running post-flight checks and waiting for a fuel truck, their Gripen counterpart is already climbing back to altitude, acquiring new targets. This wasn't about saving money. It was about generating maximum combat power from limited resources. A single Gripen could fly significantly more missions in a single day than its more complex rivals, acting as a massive force multiplier. If you are fascinated by these deep dives into the hidden strategies and engineering marvels of modern military technology, make sure you are subscribed so you never miss our future breakdowns of warfare that defies expectations. This philosophy permeated every aspect of the design. The single engine wasn't just a cost-saving measure. It meant a lighter airframe, lower fuel consumption, and a vastly simpler logistics chain. When you are operating from a hidden road in the frozen woods, you cannot wait days for a rare spare part to arrive from a central depot. This ruggedness was proven beyond doubt during the NATO operation in Libya in 2011, where Swedish Gripens flew 632 reconnaissance sorties without a single mission ever being cancelled due to a technical failure. They simply worked every time. So when NATO pilots looked over and saw a small, single-engine jet, they didn't see the doctrine that built it. They didn't see a fighter engineered to operate from a highway during a blizzard, be rearmed by teenagers in 10 minutes, and rise up to fight an enemy that thought it had already won. They saw the plane, but they completely failed to understand the weapon. That understanding would finally arrive in the frigid skies over Alaska. Exercise Red Flag is the undisputed Super Bowl of air combat training, hosted by the U.S. Air Force over the vast ranges of Alaska and Nevada.